Your engagement score does not tell you whether people will execute. It tells you how they feel about work right now. And those are not the same question. And most HR functions have been measuring the second one while reporting on the first. Hey there, senior leader, and welcome to the Talent Sherpa podcast, where senior leaders come to rethink how human capital really works. I'm your host, Jackson Lynch, and today we're going to be getting into engagement scores, what they actually measure, and why the CHRO who stops presenting the composite is sitting in a completely different meeting with the CEO. So here's the pattern interrupt. High engagement, missed numbers. Low engagement, consistent delivery. Most CHROs have seen that movie at least once, and the correlation between how people feel about work and whether the organization is executing is weaker than most HR functions ever want to admit. And yet, the survey goes out every year. Now, the Gallup Q12 has been in the field for decades, asking 5 questions, actually 12, but 5 that carry serious operational signal. 5 of those questions diagnose execution conditions directly. Role clarity, resource enablement, capability deployment, feedback quality, and leadership behavior. And those are operational variables. And they belong in a business conversation, not in a culture update. But here's what happens every year. HR rolls into a composite score. They average out the signal and they present a number to the business. The diagnostic gets buried into the metric. And if you've ever watched engagement scores go up while business results went sideways, this episode is going to name the structural reason why that happens. But before we get started, let me ask you for a quick favor. If you find value in these conversations, and I truly hope that you do, please take a moment right now and subscribe, follow the Talent Sherpa podcast wherever you get your shows. It helps more senior leaders find the show, and it allows us to keep doing this work for the larger HR community. And this week, I also want to mention the CHRO Chronicles. That's our weekly paid newsletters, written by CHROs exclusively for CHROs. Sharp, no fluff thinking on human capital strategy, delivered every week. $30 a month is all, and you can find everything at mytalentsherpa.com. All right, let's dive into this. Here's how I think this plays out inside of most organizations. The employee survey goes out in quarter one. 90 days later, a deck lands in the CEO's inbox. 61% engaged, 3 points up from last year. A few verbatims. Actual action planning sessions are going to be scheduled for quarter 3. The CEO nods, the CHRO exhales, and the business keeps executing exactly the way it did before anybody answered the survey. Now go back and look at the Q12 results in the organizations that you've worked in. The individual question results, separate from the composite. Do employees know what's expected of them? Do they have the materials and equipment to be able to do their job well? At work, do they have the opportunity to do their best work every day? In the last 7 days, have they received recognition for good work? And does their supervisor seem to care about them as a living, breathing human being? These 5 questions are systems diagnostics. When role clarity scores are low, something specifically is broken in how work is defined and communicated. When resource adequacy scores are low, something specifically is broken in the operating model, design, or in the budget deployment. When capability deployment scores are low, you have a placement problem or a job design problem. When feedback scores are low, you have a manager behavior problem with a specific population. A composite with 12 inputs loses all of that specifically, and most don't have 12 questions, they have 96. Just take those 5 operationally distinct data points, average them together with 11 other items about belonging and development team and relationships, and then you present one number, 61%. You get a directional signal where you originally had 5 discrete diagnostics. That 61% number tells the CEO nothing about where the execution risk lives, and it doesn't say anything about what to do about it. So here are the 3 structural traps I think that keep this pattern alive. The first trap is mistaking legibility for insight. A score is legible. It fits on a slide. It benchmarks very clearly. It moves up or down in ways that feel like progress. The problem is legibility and usefulness are different things. When you present a composite score, you are implicitly telling the CEO the talent system is healthy or unhealthy, and here is the number that proves it. A composite with 12 to 90 inputs loses any specificity. You get a directional signal when you originally had 5 distinct data points. Now, the second trap is confusing satisfaction with executional readiness. A highly satisfied team can produce mediocre results consistently if the system they work inside is poorly designed, or if they have bad managers, like clarity gaps, role overlap, poor handoffs, misaligned incentives. Literally none of those things show up on a satisfaction survey because people adapt. They stop noticing what is broken because working around it becomes their new normal. The system teaches behavior. People learn to operate inside the structural failure and still report feeling engaged. Now, the third trap is the action planning cycle itself. Survey goes out, score comes in, action plans get built. The action plans are almost always cultural in nature, more recognition, better communication, stronger team norms. Like, these are real things and they matter. They address symptoms, though. The structural causes stay intact. Now, an organization with role ambiguity needs clearer outcome definitions. An organization where people cannot do their best work needs a job design intervention, or you need to put someone in a different job. So here's the altitude shift. The Q12 functions as a systems audit. The delivery mechanism just happens to be called an engagement survey. So when you read those 5 execution relevant questions through an operational lens, what I love about them is they map directly to levers the CHRO owns. Role clarity maps to job architecture. Resource enablement maps to operating model design. Capability deployment maps to talent placement and role fit. Feedback quality maps to manager effectiveness and performance cadence. Leadership behavior maps to mandate clarity and coaching infrastructure. These are structural variables that determine whether the organization reliably executes. The CHRO who disaggregates those 5 results and then brings the CEO a gap analysis, they're having a whole different conversation with the CEO than the one who presents the composite. We're at 61%. The first CHRO is saying, here are the 5 structural conditions required for reliable execution. Here's where we have deficits. Here's what each deficit costs the business in speed, quality, accountability, and here's the intervention. Now, that's a conversation CHROs have when they are operating at business altitude. And here's the decision point that this reframe creates. If you run the survey to find out how people feel, you get a comfort metric. If you run the same survey to find out whether the structural conditions for execution are in place, you get a diagnostic. The instrument is identical. The questions that you bring to the data are different. And that single choice determines which room you land in and which authority you have to operate from. So if I've convinced you, let's talk about the 4 plays that move engagement data into execution intelligence. First one, we've talked about it a little bit, disaggregate before you report. What most CHROs do is present the composite score with the benchmark comparison and the trend line. But the play is to strip the composite entirely. Present each of the 5 execution relevant questions as a standalone data point, and then map it to the operational variable that it reflects. Role clarity scores below benchmark map to a job architecture risk. Recognition scores below benchmark map to feedback cadence gaps, which are managerial behaviors. Don't allow those specific signals to disappear inside an average. Now, it works because it forces the conversation to a level of specificity where action is actually possible. The CEO can't do anything with 61%. They can do something with 40% of employees in the commercial organization cannot describe what they are supposed to produce. Play 2. Connect the score to a business outcome that it predicts. What most CHROs do is present engagement as its own category, a culture metric sitting alongside the operational metrics, but not really tied to them. The play, though, is to run the correlation. Look at the business units with the lowest role clarity scores. Now look at their execution reliability, the amount of rework they have to do, the management tenure, their retention numbers, especially for key roles. That correlation is not going to be perfect, but it will be real. It will be there. And when you bring that correlation to the CEO, talent becomes a variable inside the operating model. Now, it works because it changes the organizational logic of the survey. When the CEO sees that business units with low role clarity, they miss delivery commitments at twice the rate, like that survey becomes a leading indicator. Now, here's play 3. Replace the culture action plan with a structural diagnosis. So I got bad news for you. I'm going to hurt your feelings here. I might hurt some feelings here, but most action plans stay at the program level because that is what the composite score requires. More recognition, better communication, stronger team norms. The intervention that actually moves the needle goes at least one level deeper. Identify the structural cause behind each low-scoring executional variable. If employees cannot do their best work every day, that is a capability deployment problem. Either the people are miscast in their roles, or the roles are designed in ways that suppress the skills that you were hired for. The fix is job design and probably placement criteria. Now, a person who can't do their best work inside a poorly structured role will not be rescued by a recognition program. You have to fix the container. Here's play 4, and that's to build a new scorecard around execution conditions. What most CHROs do is they just use their backward-looking vanity metric, talk about attrition rate, time to fill, those kind of things, training hours, whatever. The play, though, is to build a 5-item execution condition scorecard mapped directly to the Q12 execution variables: role clarity index, resource adequacy ratio, capability deployment score, feedback coverage rate, manager behavior indicator, and then trend them. You can pulse these things really cheaply and then present it at the business review right alongside the operational metrics. Show that correlation real time. Now, it works because the CHRO is no longer accountable for just a general score. When the scorecard reflects the structural conditions required for business execution, you're calling balls and strikes on whether the system is designed to produce the outcomes. That's an entirely different mandate. And that is so easy to make a change because you know what to do. If I have low role clarity, what do? I work on role clarity. If I have managers that are not reinforcing good performance, what do? Well, you got to manage the managers who aren't doing that. And you have team level data that allows you to move forward more quickly. Now, I realize that I have just suggested that you rethink a metric or a series of metrics that probably took political capital to get in the board deck to begin with. Keep the survey, it's fine. I'd go to the Q12, but I would stop treating the composite as the output. What you do with the data determines whether you are inside the business conversation or just reporting from the outside of it. Now, if there's one thing I want you to carry out of this episode, it's this. The engagement score tells you how people feel about work right now. And that's worth knowing. But the CHRO who disaggregates the executional variables inside that score and ties them to business outcomes is operating at a fundamentally different altitude than the one who just presents 61%. So thanks for spending some time with me today. And I appreciate you being a part of this community of senior leaders who want to rethink how human capital really works. Big shout out this week to Michelle from Nashville, Tennessee. And I want to say thank you for listening, whether you're in Great Hope, Wyoming, or it's a real city, or if you're in Chicago, Illinois. This community keeps growing, and that is because of you. Now, if you're thinking about how do I apply this to your own situation, let me point you in a couple directions. If role clarity is where you want to start, and it usually is, check out getpropulsion.ai. They have AI teammates that can work directly with your managers that enable your leaders to focus on the work that actually drives business outcomes. And if you're a first-time CHRO or you're preparing to step into that role, I'd love to work with you. We have the CHRO Ascent Academy kicking off here in a couple of weeks. And we built lots of practical tools to help you make an impact from day one. You can find everything at mytalentsherpa.com, and you can go deeper into the written word at talentsherpa.substack.com. So until next time, I want you to keep raising the bar. Keep interrogating the metrics that are shaping your authority, and keep on climbing.